And Liverpool's king to the top are champions of Europe once again.
Yeah. Well, Neil, your love affair with Villa started with basically through one man and one man only, and it's I'm guessing it's the reason you've named your podcast after him. So I have to say I really do love Paul McGrath for so many reasons. I read his book, and it's honestly probably the best sports autobiography I've ever read in my life. So I just want you to tell us your early memories of Paul McGrath. Why did he leave such a big impression on you? And I think it's generally seen how he's viewed in Ireland at this point, but how is he viewed by the Villa supporters?
Paul McGrath isn't called Paul McGrath around Villa Park, and he's called God. You know, if you walk into Birmingham and you say, you know, I've met God, they will say, how was Paul McGrath? Did you buy him a drink? You know, like, and that's not hyperbole. Like, you know, it's openly spoken about. Even managers call him God. Even ex board members call him God. That's just what he's referred to as. As you say, I did start supporting Aston Villa because of Paul McGrath. It was 92. The 92 season Villa finished second in the league, and I at the time in RTE used to carry live 3:00 games, and I saw Villa play against, I think it was Crystal Palace, and I wouldn't have been a big football fan at that stage. I was just 6, maybe going on 7, and I saw Paul McGrath. And he was just fantastic. That's literally, it was just, he just stood out. And I remember my dad.
Arguably his peak, isn't
it? Well, yeah, 92 to 96 really would have been his peak when he was at Villa. But I remember my dad was literally cheering for him, you know, at that stage because of just the kind of guy he was. My dad wouldn't have been a football fan at all, but as I started to follow Villa, he started to follow Villa as well. But yeah, it was just like that. I remember, my dad tells me the story, and I can vaguely remember watching the game, but my dad tells me that I turned around to him and I said, "Who's that guy?" And then he goes, "That's Paul McGrath." And then there was an Ireland game on. Then a week later, they were playing some friendly on a Wednesday, and I said, "That's him again. Who does he play for?" And then remember my dad telling me it was Aston Villa, and then from then on, it's just been a love affair with Villa. But he was just a colossus. Like, you know, the things that he did in an era when football was becoming very commercialized, very I suppose very, very cosmopolitan, I suppose, the world over. Like, you see what Virgil van Dijk is doing now. Paul McGrath was that type of defender. He was just imperious. You couldn't get around him. He was like, he was just a joy to watch. We've seen him play with Ireland. We remember all those games, especially, you know, the Giant Stadium 1994 against Italy. Like, what a game to be able to play that one arm sedated. You know, it's just there was numerous games like that for Villa. And even, you know, looking back and even in games that we lost, he was still a colossus. I know that, you know, we might talk about the 96 FA Cup semi-final. He was aging at that stage and was, you know, on the decline. He was really, really good that day, you know. But he was just, that's what he was. He just didn't care about his body. He didn't care. And lest we forget, this guy didn't train during the week. Yeah. He sat on a bike all day, and, you know, that was his thing. He was just a naturally gifted footballer, and just revered around Villa Park, and there's nobody that will have any negative words to say about Paul McGrath.
That's brilliant. And Anto, I mean, Neil kind of answered, you know, I was going to ask him about the Van Dijk comparison. He kind of already got there. He beat me to it. But I saw Paul McGrath on Tommy Tiernan, I think it was, I don't know, maybe 6-8 months ago or whatever. And I found it very emotional because he kind of sees, you know, he's grateful to Ireland for accepting him and for everything that we've done for him. And Tommy turned it around and said, no, we're the ones that are grateful. And, you know, we worship the man. And not just because he played for Ireland. Forget, we're Liverpool supporters. He's an ex-Man United player, but he seems to be just kind of one of these characters. I mean, I think it's really between him and Roy Keane for the greatest Irish player of all time. And for me, I'd have him as number one, just the way he conducts himself off the pitch. But he seems to be someone who kind of just transcends rivalry, doesn't he?
Yeah, and
I think.
Sorry. No, well, I was just going to say that it's a good point. It's a big part of why he's so adored and loved is his personality, his background. I mean, Paul McGrath was raised in an orphanage. He was a black child in 1970s Ireland. That was a very unusual thing. It was a very difficult upbringing. He's had, he is an alcoholic. He's gone through hell. He has gone through hell. And he played at Manchester United and Aston Villa when his knees were falling apart for the Republic of Ireland. He gave what I think is the greatest individual performance from any Ireland player ever at the Giants Stadium against Italy at USA 94. When he would have been, he was well into his 30s at that stage, and he was just superhuman. But I think why people love him so much is that he's also very human. He's really honest about his problems. He's honest about his addiction and the mistakes that he's made. And he's just a really nice man. Like, he's just a really down-to-earth, lovely man. And so you've got this paradox of a guy who's supremely talented, outrageously gifted footballer, and also flawed, and honest about that. So that combination, I think, is a big part why Paul McGrath is so loved. As you say, it transcends rivalry, because he's just, how can anybody dislike Paul McGrath? He was an amazing footballer, and he is a really good guy as well.
Yeah.
Do I know a little bit of trivia as well?
Please.
Later on in life, I found out that my mum is originally from Dublin.
Right.
And you mentioned that Paul McGrath was brought up in an orphanage, and it was close enough to where that orphanage was where my mum was brought up. So like every so often the kids would be allowed to go out and play, and so and they became friendly with a couple of guys who were in the same orphanage as Paul McGrath. But every so often he would come down and play football with them, like when they were 12, 13, 14 and so on. So without even knowing it, my mum was there. She said that I kind of remember, like, look, Colin, he was a black kid in Ireland at that time. There weren't too many children like that, and they're saying he used to always be down there playing football with their mates and stuff like that. So it was just kind of a serendipitous kind of a thing that, like, 20 years later you find out, and then comes out the orphanage he was in, and my mother turns out and goes, that's only around the corner from him. That must have been him. That must have been him playing soccer on the green. Yeah. So
I mean, if there was ever a movie to be made about a footballer's life, I know people would say, George Best would be a great one, and I'm sure it would be. But Paul McGrath, it's Charles Dickens stuff. It's incredible, and his son apparently was on the books at Liverpool at one point. So there you go.